Welcome to the next installment of my video lecture series for microeconomic principles. And in this particular video lecture, I'm going to be taking a look at profit maximization for a firm in a perfectly competitive marketplace with and without externalities being present. And what you see right here is without externalities. There are no external costs that are being generated by a firm. All the costs of doing business are being absorbed by the firm. So as you realize from previous chapters, that in a perfectly competitive marketplace, the supply and demand in the marketplace itself is what sets the equilibrium price in that marketplace. And this gets transferred over to firms because that's the price that they accept. So the market sets the price and firms accept that price. So the only decision that a firm in a perfectly competitive marketplace has is what's going to be their level of output because price is fixed for them. And that occurs where marginal cost is equal to the price. So that is the output level a firm in this marketplace will produce. It's where marginal cost is equal to price, which is also equal to marginal revenue in a perfectly competitive marketplace. Now, if I change this and assume that there are some externalities, that these firms are, for example, let's use the example of a brewery. The brewery produces some waste, dumps it into a local stream or to a local creek or lake and pollutes that lake. A firm is producing output, and as a waste product of that output process, they produce chemical waste that they dump into a local stream, river, or lake. Or a firm in the manufacturing process produces carcinogens that leach out into the local environment and increase cancer rates, etc. So they're not bearing the full burden of those costs. They're able to avoid those costs, and those are external costs that hinder the environment, let's say. So here in this example, there are external costs, and as you can see here, what I have is marginal cost and marginal social cost. So marginal cost is the marginal cost incurred by the firm, but there are costs to society that is not being incurred by that firm. And also realize that that vertical distance is a measurement of those external costs. So the vertical distance between MSC and MC are those external costs. So for the optimal output level, it should be where all costs are incurred, and that where that cost intersects the price is going to be the optimal output level. So you can see here that if firms can avoid being accountable for those external costs, they're going to have an output level of Q star, but if they're held accountable and have to incur those external costs, that the output level Q double star is less than that. So make sure you're aware of that the fact that these firms don't incur all the costs of production, you're going to have production at a higher level than if they had to incur all of those costs. So they're producing more than what we consider the socially optimal level, where marginal social costs, i.e. the cost of the firm and the cost of society together, is equivalent to the price. Excuse me. So if we keep going further, what is going to be the impact on the marketplace? Well, if there's an increase in cost, this is going to impact supply. The supply curve will shift to the left. It will shift from S1 here in red to S2. As we did in previous chapters, you realize that one of the determinants of supply is going to be the cost of doing business, and when costs go up, the supply curve shifts to the left. So we're assuming here that those external costs that the firms weren't held accountable for, that they are now incurring those costs, which is causing the supply curve to shift from S1 to S2. Since we have a new supply curve, we are going to have a new equilibrium price. So this is going to occur where the original demand curve intersects the new supply curve. The supply curve where all those costs, those external costs, are internalized by the firm. And that will give us a new equilibrium price here. That's where D and S2 intersect one another. So this is the new price that firms will face. And as you can see here, the new optimal level of output is going to be where marginal social cost intersects that new price. And you can see that by Q double star, we're going to see a lower level of production in the firms due to the fact that they are internalizing those external costs. So make sure you remember those key components, the difference between marginal cost and marginal social cost. Marginal cost is the cost of the firms incurring production, while marginal social cost includes marginal costs that the firms are incurring in production, plus any external costs that they might be generating in that particular production process. And that gives us that vertical distance right here. That is the external cost that we see. And realize, I believe, from this one, that when firms are able to avoid paying those costs, that you're going to see a higher level of output for firms due to the fact that they're not incurring all those costs. And also realize that when this occurs, this is beneficial to consumers, because when firms don't incur all those costs, those costs are reflected in the supply curve of the industry. So the supply curve is further to the right, which means that there's going to be a lower price for firms. So realize that when firms have externalities and they aren't held accountable for them, the people who buy that product actually benefit from that because they end up seeing a lower price because of that.